How many people do you know who struggle with their health? Chances are, whether they show it or not, most of the people in your life do. And chances are, you're one of them. Whether you're dealing with anxiety, depression, endometriosis, acne, eczema, autoimmune, thyroid, Lyme, brain fog, fatigue, or any other symptom or condition, you're far from alone. Living with symptoms has become the new normal. So no more guessing games. It's time to get answers. Welcome to the Medical Medium Podcast. I'm Anthony William. We're talking about the plant-based and vegan movement. It's been on the down spiral. It's not at its peak anymore. Far from it. It's taken a low and going lower every single day. There's a campaign. There's a war going on. And hey, not a lot of people are talking about it. Actually, no one's talking about it. The carnivore / keto / animal movement has gained a lot of power and momentum on social lately, especially the last couple of years. And it's been pointed in the direction towards the plant-based and vegan movement. Get ready for this episode. If you got a skin for it, fasten your seatbelts, you're gonna need them. We're going on a roller coaster ride.
So me and my boyfriend have been vegan for about 2 years now, and we've really worked really hard on it and really did everything plant-based. And then I don't know, I wasn't feeling good one day and I saw a carnivore guy, and he was talking about how you need all these things if you're a woman, and he seemed like a woman expert, and he knew that my body needed hormones from me. And so I've been working on changing my diet around, and I convinced my boyfriend that we should bring in some animal meat and change things up. And I brought in eggs and some raw milk too. And I know you girls have been following me for a couple of years, but I've really been working hard on this, and I think it's the right direction to go. It only makes sense. And anyway, I'll keep you updated as we go along.
One by one, they fall out there, faster and faster. It's not the peak anymore. It's the down cycle. But not just a little bit of down cycle. It's crashing fast. The plant-based movement and vegan movement, both are crashing fast. The minute somebody gets a symptom, they doubt it completely. Someone who's keto, carnivore, eating animal products, they don't doubt it. At least most of them don't. And there isn't any vegan or plant-based officials screaming at them, telling them that they're going to kill their organs, they're going to kill the reproductive system, that they're never going to have a baby. There's no fight in the vegan and plant-based movement anymore. No fight at all. It's almost like it's a ghost. It's a ghost of a movement. But where the fight is, it's on the keto carnivore side. It's on the animal side. That's where the fight is. And they're clobbering the plant-based movement. They're doing it systematically, in a brilliant way, in an evil way, an unjust way, but a brilliant way. Now, if you're wondering, I'm not on either side of the aisle and never was. The Medical Medium book series never was. I'm all about the messages from above on how to heal, and it applies to plant-based movement people, vegans. It applies to animal product people. It applies to somebody doing keto. It applies to everybody, all walks of life. They can use the tools, and there's a way to do it and heal. But you got to look out for all the pitfalls and the potholes. As a plant-based person, you can do it wrong and get yourself sick. As a vegan person, you can do it wrong and get yourself sick. Same with a keto person, carnivore person, or an animal product person. You could do it wrong and get yourself sick, and everybody does. So many vegan and plant-based influencers have turned against their diets. They've gone on social and they were vegan or plant-based for a certain amount of time, and then they start talking it down and saying how they brought in certain foods like eggs or raw milk or chicken or grass-fed beef or an organ meat. even some fish too. And when they do it, they're doing it in this condescending way. They're doing it in this way that it failed them before. The plant-based movement or being vegan failed them, and that they're getting sicker. Something's wrong with their health, and they're getting sicker. And then they come out with these key words, and the key words are what the carnivore people are teaching the influencers that are falling. And it's mostly women, usually young women. And it's like they're groomed. They're groomed by these masculine men on the other side of the aisle. These men that are buff, training, working out, talking about how you need amino acids, choline, iron deficiencies, how you can be malnourished, and infertility, the key word, the one that's bringing down the movement right there. They figured out a way to coin infertility now to say you can't be fertile. And women, young women, do not want to hear that. That is a nightmare. So infertility is being weaponized. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but it's being weaponized. And why would this even be happening? Who cares? Well, it's all about shifting the money out of the plant-based movement and moving it over to, guess what? Carnivore, keto, animal-based movement. They're doing a good job. They're growing. They're getting engagement. They're moving. They're hustlers. And when you weaponize a term like infertility, it's the key right there that opens up the door. It's the key that opens up the door to war. And what you get, little by little, and then a lot by a lot, are young women that were doing plant-based or eating primarily plant food start to turn and get scared. Fear. It's fear-based. Are the keto, carnivore, animal product people right about infertility? If you're plant-based or vegan, you become infertile? A yes and a no. If you do plant-based wrong and you do vegan wrong, you do it so wrong, you can probably contribute to infertility. You can support a problem that's already happening that's taking you to a place of infertility. That means you're doing something wrong and it's not helping. Instead, it's supporting a problem already there, leading you to being infertile. But let's look at the other side of the coin. The animal product people, the keto people, the carnivore people. Is there any infertility there? Is there any infertile things happening there? Are women infertile that eat keto or animal products? Sure. Because guess what? It's everywhere. The keto, carnivore people, the animal product people, they don't have this magic bullet. They don't have this panacea where they're not going to have infertility issues. They're not going to have fertility issues. Everything's going to be great. The men's sperm is going to be strong. The women's reproductive systems are going to work great. Follicles are going to be strong. That's not how it works. They got problems too. Everybody does. And if a carnivore person, a keto person, and an animal person who's in health out there and doing it as good as they can, if they're doing it wrong, then they're going to contribute to an infertility problem because it's all the same worldwide in any diet. You can do something in your diet that does not support your reproductive system. And if there's already an underlying issue that none of these belief systems know about or understand, that underlying issue could be causing the real infertility problem. And it's not about really whose diet's best and what's what. It's about finding out the real cause, knowing what's really wrong, and then customizing it to that problem. That's why you can be plant-based and still have an infertility issue. That's why you can be carnivore, keto, and still have an infertility issue. You can still do it wrong no matter what. And keep in mind, it's not about protein. The majority of the world is on animal protein. They are getting protein, lots of it every single day. And there's still all these problems like infertility. So it's not about the meatheads being right. It's not about the carnivore, keto, animal people being right. It's about their weapons of choice. It's about weaponizing. Another weapon of choice that they're using lately, and it's seriously successful, is they're talking about men who are on plant-based diets or vegan get soft. They're feminine. They get feminized, that their diets are making them feminine. And that's not good for women either. And that's scaring them. So the carnivore, the animal protein people, the keto people call the vegan guys and the plant-based guys soy boys. And the picture being painted about the soy boys is that they're weak, is that they're feeble, they're skinny, they have no masculinity, they have no muscle, they have no protein, they don't make good husbands, they're not really strong men. So if you're a woman and you're looking through social media and you see these dudes in the health realm and they're trainers and they're doctors too, PhDs, and they're working in the gym 2 to 4 hours a day, they're building muscle, they're building muscle mass, they're acting really strong, they're talking really strong, they're talking about how animal protein's critical for all walks of life for all these reasons, critical for the reproductive system, critical for iron, protein, critical for anything, including your husband or your boyfriend's masculinity. And then they talk about the guys being soft and infertile too, and their sperm being weakened. So when a woman sees all this, it's instant doubt. It just starts coming over them, especially if they just got into the plant-based movement fairly recently or became a vegan fairly recently. All they need is just one reason and they bail. And if that doesn't do it, if that doesn't turn somebody off, then all it takes is just one symptom or one more symptom and then game over. When somebody's plant-based or they're vegan and they get a symptom, it's the diet they blame it on instantly. And not only do they blame it on that, their doctor blames it on that, their best friend blames it on that, their boyfriend will blame it on that, their girlfriend will blame it on that, their family members will blame it on that. So really, it's like a no-win. It's a battle. You have to have this faith, this internal faith that says, I need to be plant-based. I don't care what anybody says. But what a plant-based person doesn't know, what a vegan person doesn't know, is that the meathead they're listening to, that's sitting there sabotaging the whole plant-based movement, the vegan movement, coming up with all kinds of weaponized terms just so they can bank in other ways, try to destroy and take down the plant-based movement. The person they're listening to can get a symptom tomorrow and they'll never blame it on their diet. They'll never blame it on what they're doing, and they'll never publicly really blame it on there. It's rare if you can find someone to do that. And then when a keto guy goes to their doctor and they're like, hey, I got this symptom, I don't feel good. Doctors will be like, how are you eating? What are you doing? I eat a keto diet. It's a really good one. I'm an influencer on social media. They'll be like, okay, good. That's all set. Don't have to worry about that. Next, let's figure this out. But when that plant-based woman or plant-based man goes to their doctor and they're like, oh, I got this new symptom, or a specialist they see, I got this new symptom, and they'll be like, what's your diet? Well, I'm eating watermelon all day. I'm eating this. I had a soy sausage. I had some beans. I had a breakfast burrito that was vegan. I'm plant-based. I had salads for a couple days in a row. I've had some avocado. They'll be like, that's why you're sick. That's why you're sick. You're protein deficient. You need to bring in animal proteins. If you're an animal-based person, keto person that's animal-based, or if you're just a carnivore person and you get some blood work done and something is off, could be anything. Could be anything. Something's not just perfect in the blood work. Well, the practitioner, the doctor, they're not going to think anything of it with your diet, with their diet. They're just going to be like, well, we got to figure this out. Maybe we can add this, do this. Maybe we can look into that. But they're not going to really rip apart the diet. But God forbid if someone who's plant-based or vegan, they get a blood test and one little thing is off, just one little thing, the world comes crashing down. And if that one thing that's wrong with the blood test is B12, that's it. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. A plant-based person, B12 deficient, is the biggest no-no. That's an epic disaster. The industry, everybody, even vegans, plant-based people, anybody alike, all of them are going to just be hating on that plant-based diet one way or another. And that B12 deficiency will be a weapon for the other side of the aisle, the meathead. the carnivore guy, the keto guy, the animal protein guy, the guys that are calling the vegan soy boys and calling them weak and feeble. It's those guys that are going to take that B12 deficiency and really run with it. But if they have a B12 deficiency, it's all crickets, nothing but crickets. And the B12 thing is all blamed on the vegans. That's all you hear out there now. All the doctors, all the different people in health, any kind of B12 deficiency. Are you vegan? Are you plant-based? They took and bore all that B12 pain. Here's the crazy thing. There's just as much B12 deficient people in the world that eat meat or any kind of animal protein product. They're B12 deficient too, just as much. There's no difference. Everybody who's eating meat, everybody on the planet, they get a B12 deficiency at some point. That's how it works. Do you really believe that B12 was created? The B12 vitamins, B12 nutrients, the coenzyme, the B12 itself, decades ago? What? For the 10 vegans 50 years ago that existed on the planet, they went through all that trouble? What about the B12 shots? They were all for meat eaters. The B12 shots that were created for people, the population, wasn't for a plant-based person. It was for all these people in their 40s and 50s and 60s going to the doctor, and 70s and 80s getting a B12 shot. It was offered to them. It was created for them. They all ate meat, and they were all deficient in B12. It was coming up on their blood tests, deficient. So they were all getting jabbed, B12 jabbed every single week, going to the doctor, every appointment, getting a B12 shot. So meanwhile, the keto carnivore meathead turned it around. They spun it. Now it was all just for the vegan. It was all just for the plant-based person. That's it. That's what B12 was invented for. Meanwhile, back in the 40s, when B12 was invented, back in the 40s, if you were plant-based, there was a good chance you were going to prison. They would take away your child in 10 seconds flat. They would lock you up so fast. And do you think after they put you in prison for being plant-based, for breaking food laws because you had a child and they thought you were actually abusing them, do you think they would be like, let's just take $10 million, get a bunch of scientists, go into the lab and try to discover a B12 injection just for these poor people that are the minority? There's only probably 20 of them in one country. Let's make sure they get their B12 needs. In the 1940s, if your child, your 7-year-old child, got on a bus, went to school, brought their lunchbox, opened it up, and there wasn't milk in there, or some cheese, or some tuna, or some ham, and it was just grapes, an apple, and a piece of celery stick, or a piece of lettuce, or something, or like a cucumber, they would take that kid away from the family so fast, their heads would be spinning. So after they stick their children in a foster home, let them now go look for a B12 supplement for that poor family. They just took the children away. Oh, we created B12 just for you. So let's be clear. B12 was created for the meat eater. But now, these days, B12 has been weaponized. It is the number one talking point right there against the vegans, against the plant-based people. It's you're going to become B12 deficient. You better start eating meat at some time in your life. Meanwhile, the truth, medical medium information, we create our own B12. We create it in our gut. And if you can't create it in your gut, you get small portions of it in everything you eat. But here's the kicker right here. The B12 in meat, in animal protein, isn't bioidentical. It's for the meat. It's for the animal. It's for the cow. It's for the bull. It's for the lamb. The B12 that's in meat is only for their bodies. They recognize that coenzyme. They see it. The body utilizes it. It's not for our bodies. It doesn't work. It's not the same thing. A meat eater has to still create their own B12 unless they take a supplement or get a B12 shot, which is still not the best route, the B12 shots. But the meat eater has to create it inside their own body, inside their gut, inside their liver. They have to create it just like the animals they're eating, just like the cow. The cow had to create its own B12. Same thing. The plant-based person, the vegan person, has to create their own B12, just like the meat eater and just like the cow did. When medical science in the 1940s saw all these meat eaters, they saw all their B12 deficiencies. They were like, we have to do something about it. We have to change the world. We have to create a B12 coenzyme supplement in some form, some way, in a B12 shot. We have to save the human race because the meat eaters are getting B12 deficient, and that's what happened in the 40s. But when a meat eater's gut isn't working right, their ileum, when they're not producing that B12, when their liver's not functioning good and they're not producing that B12, they're going to need it somewhere. When a plant-based person or a vegan is not producing their B12 for the same reason, gut problems, ileum problems, problems with their liver, they're going to need B12. A meat eater can be more deficient than a plant-based person if their body isn't working right, their gut, their ileum, their liver. But they can show more B12 in the bloodstream because they're eating a piece of meat. They're showing the B12 in their bloodstream from the piece of meat because the meat will have some B12 in it, but it won't be the right B12. It won't be bioidentical. It was made for the cow, not for the human. So it's a useless B12 floating around amongst some of their own B12 being produced in their gut, their ileum, their liver. But nobody's going to know the wiser or the difference. Nobody's going to understand that. Doctor will just say, oh, you seem like you're okay and your B12 looks pretty good. And then they look at a plant-based person, whoa, your B12's down low. Something's going on here. Meanwhile, the meat eater and the plant-based person are both low in B12. It's just that the meat eater is showing some, but it's a false read. It's cow B12, not human B12. But remember, B12 was created in the 40s for the deficient meat eater. When it comes down to war with the meatheads against the soy boys, a lot of different unfair tactics can occur. One is people were skinnier back then. It's a weapon of choice used by the keto, the carnivore people, the meat eater people, the influencers, the doctors that are influencers on social. It's a new one, but they've been using it. And it works. It definitely slaughters soy boys like pigs. Back in the day, the late 1800s, the early 1900s, 1910, 1920, 1930, and even 1940, everybody in old film, any kind of historical films or any kind of different movies where they bring in old historical clips or photographs, everybody was bone thin. So the meatheads say, well, they were all eating meat and they were eating pork. They were having bacon. They were having pork sausages. They were eating ham. They were eating lots of meat. They were all meat eaters. They weren't vegans. They weren't plant-based people, and everybody was skinny. It's a great weapon. It's a great tool they're using, and it works. It convinces people instantaneously, and then people think the meatheads are really smart, and they figured something out. Like, whoa, I'm definitely going to back this horse because who would know this? You're right. They were all skinny then. They were like bone thin. So let's get into it a little bit. Back in the 1800s, early 1900s, they were thin. Obesity was down. It was really minimal. And there was a reason for that. Everybody was starving. It was a luxury to have more food than you can eat. A luxury only for the rich, aristocracies. It was a luxury for them. And then you would see a plump person, but they were always people that had a ton of money. They had their own people working for them. They had all their different workers. They had their own cars. They had their horse carriages. They had big houses. They were in the social scene, and they got heavy from indulging. They had access to so much food. Everybody else, they were hungry. So it wasn't just a depression. It wasn't just the lines where you waited for a piece of ham and butter and bread. Actually, everybody was hungry. You only had so much to eat. Small portions, very small portions for your breakfast, if you were lucky enough to have breakfast, for your lunch, if you were lucky enough to have a lunch, and dinner, if you didn't go to bed hungry without dinner, which most people did do. Back then, that was the thing back then. I remember talking to a lot of people in their 80s, 70s, and 90s back in 1990. And I heard this over and over again. We went to bed hungry. We went to bed hungry, especially with a household with 4 people, 5 kids, 6 kids, 8 kids. So many people went to bed hungry. In those old films, those old videos, those old snapshots, those old photographs, you see clothes falling off of people. You see clothes literally hanging and falling off of people. They were bone thin for a reason. But the carnivore guys, the keto guys, the meatheads, the influencers, the doctor influencers that are all into keto, they use this. It's a great weapon. It's convincing too if you don't know history, if you don't know the truth or what happened. It's an easy one to get caught up in, and they're using it, and they're winning with it. Another weapon of choice from the meat eaters is protein, not getting enough protein. That's been ingrained in society for decades upon decades. It's a great talking point. It's one that always seems to win, and it has the plant-based people scrambling all the time. They're counting their protein. They're counting their grams of protein. They're looking at everything as it's protein. They're worried to death they're not getting enough protein. If they get a symptom or a twitch or an ache, it's because there's no protein in their diet, they believe. They're being brainwashed. And the keto people, carnivore people, the meat eaters, man, they knocked it out of the park with that one. It doesn't mean they're right, because they're not right about that one either. But they use that one, and it's a sword. It's a dagger. Because when you're somebody and you've been trained and brainwashed to believe protein's everything, and you don't get enough protein unless you eat animal products, it's already a loser. It's already a loser in your mind. So they weaponize that one every day, taking it to a new level. So basically, anybody plant-based is going to worry about it at one time or another. They're going to be freaked out about it. The thing is, the truth about protein is too much protein, no matter what, damages the kidneys. It quickens the bad health of your liver. Your liver gets stagnant and sluggish faster. It clogs up everything in the body. Too much protein is too much protein. Not a great thing. But you can't win the battle. You can't win the fight with that one. It's never going to work. It's literally like a virus out there, a demon, actually. And everybody believes it no matter what. Truth is, everybody's getting enough protein. Everybody. Vegetarians, vegans, plant-based people, pescatarians, anybody, meat eaters, keto people, carnivore people, they're even getting enough because you don't need much. It's why breast milk has very little protein in it, more glucose, more trace mineral salts. Breast milk is low in protein for a reason, because our digestion is not supposed to be bogged down. Our HCl is not supposed to be overloaded and diluted that much, having to break down a lot of protein. Protein damages the kidneys. It kills the pancreas. It's hard on the stomach. It's hard on the skin. It clogs up the lymphatic system. We're not meant to eat loads and loads of protein, and everybody's getting enough protein. Whether you're keto, whether you're some kind of animal eater, whether you're plant-based, vegan, whatever you are, you're going to get enough protein unless you're starving yourself completely or water fasting a lot or doing something else. You're going to then get obviously protein deficient, but maybe not so bad. If it's a juice cleanse or something, you're still going to get some. But the point is, either way, anybody eating every day normally, they wake up in the morning, they go to bed at night, they ate enough calories, they ate somewhat of a balance of foods, they're going to get enough protein. There's always going to be some vegans out there. there's always going to be some plant-based people. And there's always going to be some plant-based influencers, authors, plant-based doctors, vegan doctors. They're going to be out there. But they're starting to talk in an echo chamber. An echo chamber. Because the vegan movement, the plant-based movement, has just about totally fallen. By 2025, it's going to be devastating. Because the people that are the loudest are the new doctor who doesn't practice anymore, the new influencer who's out there working out all day long. And they're making some really convincing points. Of course, there's holes in it everywhere. Of course, they're wrong about so much. But that doesn't matter when it comes down to war. It's a dirty game. It's a dirty fight. And the soy boys, they're not stepping up. Quiet as mice, not making a peep. And their girlfriends and their friends, the young women right now who were vegan for a little while, who are now going to keto, now going to carnivore or any kind of animal diet, they're voicing themselves. And they're saying to their crowds, I made a mistake. Eggs are good for me. I made a mistake. I need meat. I need organ meat for my heart, for my reproductive system, for my liver. I need to eat liver. That's what I need. I was totally duped thinking I could be on just plant food. I need my protein. I'm getting malnourished, just like they're all saying. I'm not feeling good. I'm not thinking right. I don't have energy. Something's wrong with this plant-based diet. I can't be vegan anymore, even though I did it because I was worried about animals. I can't do it anymore. I got to take care of me. Got to take care of myself. So I'm going to go get a chicken sandwich. Meanwhile, everybody eating meat, everybody on keto, everybody doing the animal protein stuff, even if they're working out, even if they're building muscle, even if they're living their life, are having the same symptoms and the same problems. If not now because they're 22 years old or 26 years old or 29 and they haven't had a real health challenge yet, they will later. Everyone's susceptible. Everyone. For a symptom to happen, for an illness, for a condition, everybody is eligible for that. Meat eater, plant-based person, keto person, vegan person, any kind of carnivore guy, they can get sick. And they do. It always happens because there's other things going on. That's why the medical medium information is there for people to learn what happened, why they got sick, and how to fix it. And guess what? They can be plant-based. If you're plant-based, I encourage you to stay plant-based, but do it right. Learn why you got sick. Learn how to heal while you're plant-based. Same thing with anybody who's keto, carnivore, animal-based. You could stay that way. Learn how you got sick. Learn how to heal. Use the tools. There are answers because everybody gets sick at some point with something, and no one's immune to getting sick. Unless someone found the answer, they don't know why they're sick. So they believe it's caused by their diet. It's not just a rookie thing in health to believe that diet is why you're sick. It's an entrenched belief system among long-term diet believers too. Again, people committed to diet belief systems believe that their diets beforehand were the sole reason for any symptoms they experienced, instead of understanding pathogens, heavy metals, chemical exposure as the source of their symptoms. This is part of the brainwashing mechanism. When symptoms come up once they're following a diet belief system, if it's plant-based, they'll fall through the trap door of believing they got sick from the lack of animal products. If they get sick on an animal-based diet, on the other hand, they won't blame their diet. They'll be more apt to blame factors like stress or unhappiness. They'll be more afraid of fruit than ever before. They'll feel like maybe there's a spiritual or genetic reason why they're sick. Each side, plant-based and animal-based, has part of its underbelly exposed. Plant-based believers are more susceptible to getting slammed about deficiencies because they've long been fed doubt about whether a plant-based diet offers them all the nutrition they need. Both sides are susceptible to fear. Both sides get sick with the same types of symptoms. Once they become sick, both plant-based and animal-based believers start worrying about everything.
Original published medical medium information gets stolen and poached by podcast doctors, social media doctors, influencers, and medical clinics. Medical medium information has never yet been proven wrong by medical science and research. Instead, the opposite, only proven right and then taken from medical medium published material and used in the conventional and alternative health communities. Medical medium information continually sets the stage for medical science to understand chronic illness better. If you choose to share or use the original, unique content from the Medical Medium podcast, books, or Medical Medium social media, please cite where this information comes from, so others who see and learn of this information have a chance to know where it all originates, to give them an opportunity to heal, so they don't end up losing years of their life searching for answers like so many have before them. The Medical Medium information here on this podcast doesn't come from broken science, interest groups, medical funding with strings attached, botched research, lobbyists, internal kickbacks, persuaded belief systems, private panels of influencers, health field payoffs, trendy traps, or gathered bits and pieces of gimmicky confusion. Because chronic illness is exploding like never before in our modern day history, it takes a greater force than us down here. It takes a helping hand from above. Medical medium information has street cred. It's an organic movement of countless people around the world healing. More healing stories of real people not being paid to tell their life-changing experiences of rising out of the ashes of sickness and entering into the light of full recovery, getting their lives back and finally healing when nothing else in the world of health could move the needle and get them better. The information on this podcast is not man-made. It comes from above, from a higher source. Whatever you believe in, whether God, the universe, the light, or the creator, or if you believe in nothing at all, that we're just floating through space together on this rock. Know that the information you hear on this podcast is separate from all the other noise out there. It comes from a different place, a pure, untampered with, advanced, clean, uncorrupted, original, primary source, a higher source, spirit of compassion.